Hey everybody, Tired Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully everyone is doing well. We're almost done with the week and we're getting closer towards Thanksgiving. But as I've been talking about, and I'm pretty sure a lot of others on YouTube and beyond have been talking about as far as the weather's concerned, things are getting a bit more interesting. And then when we look at the latest SBC outlook, look what we have here. Severe weather is slated to return here starting at the end of this weekend on Sunday, on the 19th and then the 20th. So Sunday and Monday and maybe Tuesday as well, we could be looking at the potential for some severe weather here. So let's go over this day by day here, because day 4 and 5, Sunday and Monday, are the days that we need to be watching right now. We've been kind of highlighting this on the channel and other YouTubers as well. In the central part of Oklahoma in particular, towards Oklahoma City, Norman, Tulsa, Dallas is even included in this 15% area. All hasn't seemed to be possible with this setup. There's still a couple of questions that I personally have on this setup, but I do think that there's a pretty good shot of severe weather. This is going to be slated to happen towards the middle of the day on Sunday, so we'll actually be live streaming this as it happens. If anything may go down here. It's been a while, and I'd love to touch base with you guys, so I'll use that as an excuse. But either way, that's what we have going on for Sunday. We're going to get into the details of both days in a minute here, in particular Sunday. And then on Monday, we look towards the Gulf Coast. We've been talking about this with the traditional El Nino setup, that this area over here towards the Gulf Coast in the southeast will be an area of interest. Over towards Jackson, Alexandria, Louisiana, and areas a little further off to the west here, right towards that Louisiana Texas line here. We'll have to be on the lookout for severe weather. Both of these areas, I want to make sure I make this clear, both of these areas could either decrease or increase in size. These fall setups can be really tricky sometimes. These typically tend to be what we call high shear, low cape events, and especially with Monday, that definitely seems to be the case. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the models real quick, and we'll kind of go from there. Looking at our model data here, the thing that I've noticed the most is pretty good congruency, but the time frame is being pushed back a little bit later. So this could potentially inhibit the setup for Sunday here. We'll start out by looking at the Euro, of course. If I can get this to load. Okay, there we go. I don't know why it froze up on me, but this is looking at the Euro in the short term here. This is looking at about 51 hours out. See the trough become a little bit more pronounced as we get into Sunday afternoon, and it's really towards, and really with the way this trend is looking, we may be looking a little further to the south here, but the timing of it is really what's going to be key here. If we could get a little bit of a sharper look in regards to how the trough really kind of digs here, especially at the upper levels, we could have a more significant event. But there's not much amplitude with this, so this could inhibit. And then also, if we look towards Monday, of course, we aren't going to get a great look at this because we only get 90 hours on this version of the Euro here. 18Z Euro only goes up to 90 hours. Same thing with 06Z. But you can kind of see not much in the way amplitude. The thing that may still allow this to happen is really depending on how the lower levels look, and then also the not the sounding, but the forcing as well. You can see these little contour lines here. The tighter that they are, the stronger the winds are, and usually the stronger the forcing is. From what we see on Euro here, it's sufficient enough to get some thunderstorms going, but the severe threat may diminish as a result of that. If we go ahead and look at GFS, it's a slightly different picture here. This is looking towards the afternoon Sunday. A little bit more amplitude in the troughing here, and then also good forcing as well, but still seeing that little bit of a trend to the south here, though. Could see maybe a little bit more towards the Oklahoma-Texas line. I was thinking maybe a little bit more towards central Oklahoma is where the threat will be greatest, but looks like we may be seeing a trend south here. Still some questions in regards to that. Of course, looking at other parameters is going to be helpful with that as well. We do see a little pocket right here that I'm interested in particular over towards the Gulf Coast states, but amplitude is a little bit better, but forcing is still going to be a question, especially further off to the south. So once that gets going, Tuesday is another day I was interested in, but I think the cold front's pretty much going to take over, and most of our dynamics are going to kind of fall off just a little bit, and then we'll be watching this setup kind of see its way out of the eastern half of the US here. If we were to go ahead and switch over to the Euro and the GFS at different levels of the atmosphere, this is when things get a little bit more interesting. I'm going to show you both of the models here. We'll start with the Euro first, and we'll kind of run this in a loop here. You can kind of see that trough beginning to really become more organized, in that mid-level low pressure area become more pronounced a little bit later now. So it does lead to some questions as to what could happen with Sunday here. Still see that signature ski jump look, but it's happening later in the evening. And why this is important is because during the fall, you don't have as much sunlight. Sunlight's a key factor to severe weather genesis, or also, as a lot of us may come to know it, is daytime heating. That daytime heating is crucial when it comes to severe weather. And with already less time being available, once the sun begins to set, we cool off really quickly, and that instability starts to fade. Without instability, these storms have no real fuel to feed on, and that's a really big problem here. So look over to the right, we see a pretty similar deal. I'll actually pause this one since this is a long run here. I'll actually pause both of these. But with GFS here, we see a pretty similar look here. Timing of that trough is really going to make things a little bit more tricky. But notice this little extra area of spin right here could keep the severe weather threat potential there, but it's not quite as pronounced as I would like it to be. It could also cause this threat to shift a little further to the north as well. So like I said, there's a lot of questions with this setup still. We really aren't going to start to get any clear answers probably until later this weekend. I would say probably tomorrow into Saturday we would start to get a better picture as to what happens with Sunday. These fall setups and winter setups are often really difficult to forecast. So that being said, go ahead and go on into Monday here. Still sufficient forcing over this region here. Really, I think timing is going to be the key to any sort of severe potential here. With this one, I'm definitely leaning towards more of a linear event. Maybe towards the far southern end, there could be enough of a directional shear and speed shear maybe for a tornado or two. Like I said, fall setups are really tricky sometimes. So you never know what you're going to really get. Quotes to Forrest Gump. Anyway, let's go ahead and look at this from another level of the atmosphere. We'll look at the mid-levels. Pretty much a similar deal here. Usually, like I said, when you get into the mid-levels, you get a better picture the lower you go. And of course, like I said, we're also kind of looking for any sort of shortwave that could help aid this storm system here as well. Right now, I'm not really seeing any. There is some decent troughing at this level as well, though, so that is kind of running into its favor just slightly, but I think mid to lower level kinematics could come into play here, either as an ally or an asset, if you will, with this setup. We're quoting the great Jim Ross. Yes, I was a WWE fan growing up. Anyway, we look at GFS here. We're kind of seeing a similar deal. Like I said, GFS and Euro aren't too far apart. It's just really more so the timing that's making this forecast become a little bit more complicated here. I do like what I'm seeing here if you're looking for tornado development here, because with the upper level winds, we were going a little bit more towards this way, and then we see these little barbs right here kind of going more this way. Sorry, that was a bad line, but pretty much you can kind of see where I'm getting at here. Different changing wind directions at height is always something that you would look for when it comes to severe weather, especially with tornado genesis. So there are, like I said, there are some things that are working in the system's favor to be a little bit more active here, but still plenty of complications and uncertainties with this as well. If We go into Monday, like I said, it looks okay, but definitely not anywhere near as pronounced as what we could be looking at on Sunday here. Of course, we're looking at only 2 models. There's still a lot of model data yet to go here, as far as like actually trying to forecast the setup, because if you think about it, we still have the convective models, which aren't even in range yet. Won't be until probably tomorrow night into Saturday. But if we were to look at Monday setup, you can see a distinct difference here. And then as we go into Tuesday, you see that frontal boundary. Could see some linear storms, maybe some severe over here. Like I said, South Georgia, South Alabama, maybe the Florida Panhandle. But outside of that, this is also going to bring the temperatures down notably. No winter weather though this time to be concerned with at the moment here. Lastly, we'll take a brief look at the 850s. If there's anything that really kind of catches the eye here, I'll pause it really quickly. But for the most part, I'm not really expecting a whole lot at the moment. We'll start out looking at the euro here. And like I said, I think this is really where we start to become a little bit more concerned here as far as the severe weather setup is concerned on Sunday. This nice little pocket right here that's developed around that little area of spin over here that's going to be over towards Kansas. The right temperatures and the dew points, or the moisture return, moisture nose being right here, being right within this area, within that time frame, it definitely does give an opportunity. Like, it's not a guaranteed chance, but it's an opportunity. Still, like I said, there's plenty of fail parameters to go with this. Dry air can come into play. Moisture may not quite advect all the way to the north here, so a lot of things that still could go the other way with this system, so to speak, or go wrong depending on how you look at it. As we go with the GFS here, we see a pretty similar look. It does seem like around 21Z though, that low-level jet is trying to already retreat from this system, maybe get a little too far out ahead of it. And then as we go into Monday, not really as much to work with there. I really think with that little area of spin starting to work its way off to the north a bit, it's going to kind of be the undoing of this storm system here. As far as Tuesday is concerned, there is some low-level jet, but I think it's going to be right on the front, if not behind it. And I think that's going to really kind of inhibit any sort of chance of severe weather, or not completely, but it's definitely going to help keep that threat down, so to speak. Last but not least, we'll go ahead and take a look at the dew points here, and then we'll actually take a look at what the weather could look like on both models here. We'll actually switch it up, start with GFS this time. We'll just kind of jump this forward a bit. So we'll go all the way to Saturday afternoon. You can already see that little moisture nose right here starting to come into play. And by the time we get into Sunday, you can see those 60-degree dew points, which is always something I say to look out for. Kind of working its way right towards that Texas-Oklahoma line here. So definitely something to keep watch of. And then once we get into Monday, the thing is with that setup, moisture returns are more than sufficient. We can definitely see that. It's usually a given whenever you have a storm system close to the Gulf of Mexico. It's really the kinematics that are kind of working against it just slightly. But that, and I think instability itself, is going to be a real inhibitor for Monday. I think with Tuesday's setup, it's slightly different here. And we'll go ahead and, of course, look at the instability. Actually, I thought we were about done. Haven't done this in a while, so I'm a little rusty. But that being said, we look at Sunday setup. Pretty similar deal. The interesting thing to note here, the difference between the GFS and the Euro, is the Euro kind of has this moisture nose coming in a bit later, so it does lead to some questions on my end here. You do see a little bit of a dry line here too, so maybe the chance of some nocturnal storms could be possible, but I do have questions about instability at this point as well. So between all this data that we have here, like I said, there's still plenty of different fail parameters here, still plenty of uncertainties as well. So if we go ahead and take a look at the instability here, we'll look at the mixed layer cape, for Sunday, and then we'll go beyond that with the GFS as well with the surface. But like looking at mixed layer Cape in particular because it shows all levels of the atmosphere. And the interesting thing to note is with that timing being slightly different, we don't really see as much in the way of Cape. Like I said, this is pretty typical for our fall type setups. High wind shear, good strong kinematics, but not much in the way of actual instability. The thermodynamics aren't quite as robust as what you would see during the springtime, for example, where we would see Cape values of about 1,000 plus with almost regularly, sometimes even 3,000 plus wasn't uncommon, especially during this spring. It was a pretty active severe weather season this year. But on the Euro end of things here, it looks like we're only seeing up to about 500 joules of Cape. And then if we go ahead and take a look at GFS here, we'll look at our surface Cape. I expect the values to be slightly higher, but even so, like I said, I'm pretty sure this is also going to be a pretty low yielding Cape event as well. So this is getting into Sunday morning here. You don't really see much of anything on the screen to our right here. And even then, like I said, not really a whole lot to work with here. There's a small pocket over here towards central Oklahoma where we have that Cape reaching about 1,000 joules per kilogram. Sufficient enough for severe weather, but it's not gonna a lot for a live, like a widespread event. It's going to probably be a condensed area where the severe weather potential is highest. We actually take a look at the sounding here. It's a decent looking sounding, but nothing to necessarily write home about. Like I said, the kinematics look pretty good here on the low levels at the very least here. But like I said, temperatures and the dew points are kind of struggling just a little bit here. There's decent lapse rates, however. They're pretty moderate. They're moderately steep. So like I said, not a 0% chance, but definitely not one of those textbook setups that you would expect to see during the springtime here. But nonetheless, threat is still real. So if you live in these areas, don't let your guard down. Just keep an eye on the weather really at this point. So if we actually look at this from the precipitation here on the Euro and the GFS, we're going to pretty much see for the most part mostly shower storm activity across the board, really for the entire country. And then really beyond that, you'll start to see that front begin to take shape as we get closer towards Monday and into Tuesday here. Here's that low pressure area towards the surface that is going to help kind of influence that severe weather just a little bit. But as you can see, coverage isn't really widespread here. Might be a couple pockets where some of these storms are stronger, and then just as quickly as they get going, they kind of fall off a bit. See a little bit of a chance of redevelopment over here further off to the east here. And this is where we kind of shift back towards the GFS a bit, because you see the same thing going on here with the GFS at 75 hours out. But when we go towards Monday morning into Monday afternoon, a little bit of refiring going on here. And then as we go into Tuesday, we see that front really start to get going here at this point. And I think this is where we have that threat for some linear activity across the southeast and the Dixie. And then after that point, this is an interesting look here. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into this weekend. But if we can get that cold air to mix in right here, we could be looking at the potential for a little bit of winter weather towards the interior northeast here. Some snow, maybe a little bit of ice as well. So like I said, we were expecting things to start to pick up here as we headed towards the Thanksgiving holiday. And it looks like that is definitely coming into fruition. Not to mention with that trough coming in, the cool down's coming. So a lot to talk about on the channel. Make sure you're staying tuned. Appreciate the opportunity to even present this kind of stuff to you guys. So I want to thank everybody who's been watching so far, and hopefully you can get the word out to more people. But that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You know what to do. Make sure you're smashing that like button, decimating that subscribe button, and obliterating that share button. We're going to be more active around here since the weather's starting to pick up especially. We'll still have other videos coming up as well, so stay tuned for all of that. Again, appreciate you guys being here. I will see you tomorrow. It's been Tyler, Metalhead Weatherman. Keep those horns up, and have a good night.